Good morning, ladies. Did you think that we were going to take a week off and let this league heal from the bullshit we just went through last week? You are absolutely wrong. We are going to pick that scab and make it so much worse. Let's see who we can get to quit this week. My God, I hope it's Kenny. Dan, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, buddy. Yourself?
Always good. For those that don't know, I'm about to spend a day in New York City as soon as this podcast is over. So no matter how mad you guys get at each other today, I'm not going to notice and not going to let it fuck my day up. So we are back for
Challenge accepted.
yeah, there you go. So we are back for week 4 in the Massillon Football League. It was a pretty interesting week 3. As always, I'm going to talk about the trades that went down. So we had quite a few, and Dan, you are a part of 2 of them. So Dan, we're going to start with yours. You had Horvath and you gave up James Cook, Jameson Williams, a 1 and a 5 to grab Mike Evans, Devin Singletary, a 6 and a 10. And then at the last minute, you also gave up Curtis Samuel to grab Trevor Lawrence in the league where you're just going to roster every quarterback at least once, apparently, but we'll get to that in a second. Kenny and Taylor, trade of the week, obviously. Taylor finally gives up Jamar Chase, but after he uses him for a week, and that's going to come back up later, but brings in CeeDee Lamb, Cam Akers, Najee Harris, a 1 and a 2 for Jamar Chase. Greg and Rob, well, actually, let me talk about these trades in order. Horvath and Motts did a trade where Horvath brings in Christian Kirk, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the San Francisco defense, which was weird. A 7, 8, and a 9, sending Horvath, Adam Thielen, Devin Singletary, who he sent to you. New Orleans, a 2, 2, and a 3. And then Rob turns around and trades CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, to Greg for a 2, getting back a 7. So a lot of player movement from the same players. Dan, let's start with your trades. I personally, and I've already told you this, think you slightly overpaid for Mike Evans. A lot of that is because of the playoff picture that I'm going to talk about in a minute, but kind of walk us through the thoughts on both your trades.
Just felt like I needed to make a move, get my team a little bit better. Horvath was clearly, I think, selling some good players. Obviously, Evans has not played well. Neither has anybody on the Tampa Bay offense. I'm just kind of banking on Tom Brady and them guys figuring this out. Could absolutely blow up in my face, but I'm not the kind of person I can just mail in a season. I don't think I'm winning a championship or anything like that. Just want to do my best to try and get as many wins as I can. I think the championship already belongs to Taylor. Everyone else is just playing for second. So
yeah, I'm in that tough spot with you too because my wide receivers are awful, as we've talked about for 4 weeks now. So I don't quite know where I am yet. I'm not going to tell you I wouldn't have bought Mike Evans. I just don't know in a season where I'm like, I'm not going to win a championship, and I don't know if I'm going to make the playoffs. I don't know if I would have gave up a 1. Trevor Lawrence, interesting play because I really think Trevor Lawrence is going to improve as the season goes, and we've been talking for a while now about how your quarterback situation is an absolute mess, and with the depth you bring in with Mike Evans, that makes Curtis Samuel inexpensive, and it's also just a good trade all around, I feel like.
Well, what's funny is I was actually just going to cut Curtis Samuel, put him on a trade block. Nobody
Fuck you, Stevie. There you go.
Well, what's funny is, so last week after the show on like Sunday, Steve texted me. He's like, "Hey, just off the show, what do you really think of my team?" And I was like, I think you have a good team. I really like your team. I don't think you're a championship level team right now, but I do think you have a good team. Just for fun, I was like, "What do you think of mine?" He's like, "Man, you just got to keep that Curtis Samuel in your flex, and you're gonna be doing good things." I was like,
tipped his hand.
Steve seems like he likes that Curtis Samuel guy, and I need a quarterback. I bet I can get Trevor Lawrence for that Curtis Samuel guy I'm going to cut.
There you go. So, and then let's just touch on
Steve, but thank you.
I loved it. Let's touch on the big trade. I think we both actually agree on this trade. Jamar Chase back on Kenny's team. So Kenny has gotten back to the team he started the season with, just with worse draft picks. And then Taylor picks up CeeDee Lamb, who Kenny stole, Cam Akers, who looked good last week. I can't be a complete dick about it. Najee Harris, who's had a rough season, but Taylor also brings in a 1 and a 2. So I guess that proves Kenny's point about if you're trading elite receivers, you better be getting a 1 back. So Kenny pays the 1 after giving Taylor a hard time for not getting the 1 for Justin Jefferson. And what a mess this whole situation is. I think Taylor absolutely smashes this trade. I said last week or 2 weeks ago, Taylor's biggest issue was no depth. Kenny just fixed the no depth issue for Taylor's team.
Yeah, so, the NFL has been weird this year. I know it's only been 3 weeks, so small sample size, but the NFL, I feel like defenses are really improving on taking away star players. If you look at Justin Jefferson, you look at Jamar Chase, players like that, and they're having trouble adjusting. I have a hard time paying right now for Jamar Chase the way Kenny did. And so I see that either him or the Bengals are really going to make improvements against all. Because as a Bengals fan, I can tell you right now, the Bengals are perfectly happy taking one-on-one matchups with T. Higgins all day.
As a T. Higgins manager, I'm pretty sure you're pretty happy about that as well.
Love that. But I mean, just taking that out of the equation, I mean, that's what the Bengals are fine with. They view T. Higgins as a one. They've said this multiple times.
And at some point, we're going to see it shift, at least for a game or two, where defense are going to be like, well, we got to stop T. Higgins' big ass, and then Jamar Chase is going to break in one-on-one coverage. It's just the nature. So
absolutely. And the Bengals, hopefully, will get the running game going. They both can have great games. But I have a hard time paying that much for Jamar Chase right now, looking at how much he is not being productive. Again, as a Bengals fan, I hope that he blows up and does what he did last year. As a fantasy football manager and unbiased, I would not have given up that much.
All right.
I made an offer for him too. I wasn't expecting to get him, but
there you go. I mean, Taylor paid premium, or excuse me, you made an offer for Chase. You said, okay, Kenny paid premium price is what I mean to say. So my week 3 takeaways, I'm going to start with Kenny, who I'm giving a hard time, but in all honesty, Kenny's team is real. And whether you want to admit it or not, I think you kind of have to at this point. Phil's team is real. And I know that's my running point back to back. Both undefeated, both over 130 fantasy points last week. And I'm going to throw in one more. Steve Horvath might be the unluckiest bastard ever. On top of the injuries, he drops 118 points in a loss. Did you have anything you want to add to those?
Obviously, I'm taking the L on Phil, And what's crazy to me is he already has cut his second-round pick from this year. His first-round pick hasn't done nothing.
I didn't even pay attention to that.
James Cook, he cut him already, which I've already
traded. And then you work him into a trade. Just the ultimate fuck you. That's hilarious.
And his first-round pick hasn't done anything. So he could be way better than what he is right now if he drafted better. I still do not think that he's going to make the playoffs. I don't see his team being consistent throughout the year. We'll see. Maybe I take the L on that one too. But he's obviously better than what I expected.
My last one is JR might be the worst team in a normal year where Brian didn't completely sell this year for last year. 216 points through 3 games, 70 points a game, and only dropped 53 last week. That is a bad fantasy football team for JR right now.
I'm just glad I played him on the 1 week that he actually did well. So, yay.
Yeah, I was going to say. that is pretty hilarious in the long run. Any other takeaways you want to throw in before we talk about the playoff teams?
One of the things I noticed, I have played the easiest schedule and only had 1 win. And it's not even close to how easy my schedule has been. It's been rather embarrassingly easy. So very nervous for the year, but we'll see.
What's funny is we're going to talk about the playoff teams here in a second, but when you look at the 3 teams I'm not going to mention for the playoffs, my own roster, your roster, and Xavier's roster, we have solid rosters. It's just I've told you this privately. I think the top 6 teams, and here are my top 6. I think the top 6 teams are far too good right now. I'm very impressed with the way the league has built their roster. So I have Taylor at number 1. I agree with you. His championship to lose. I'm still going to give Stevie the bye week based on depth. And then the next 4 teams all just kind of have a wart. I'm putting Kenny at 3. My issue for him is no depth. I'm putting Terry at 4 because of the disappointing of his superstar players. I'm putting Motts at 5. Again, depth is an issue. And then I'm putting Phil at 6 in the playoffs, but I'm still worried about that flex position. We haven't seen it from Treylon Burks. He's doing well without a flex right now, but the problem is when bye weeks start hitting, all of these no-depth teams could take losses they shouldn't take when bye weeks start hitting.
Yeah, so for me, it's my order goes Taylor 1, and then battling for second is Steve, Kenny, Terry, Rob, and you. Okay. I will say that Rob and Terry are 2 teams I'm nervous about as well, just because I think that they are going to be dependent on the Chargers, and I question the Chargers at this point.
Well, I was going to say, we have a lot of that going on in the league right now, because I was going to even joke about with your team, you have the Buccaneers and the Bengals is so goes them, so goes your team. And then Terry, obviously with the Chargers, and then Rob. I mean, Rob's kind of independent of the Chargers, right?
No, he has Mike. He is independent. Just has Mike Williams, but I don't. Rob has Josh Allen and then a bunch of average players, which are good. You have decent players. He doesn't have that second player that can carry him, and I think Mike Williams needs to be that second player that can carry him.
That's fair. I feel like we haven't seen the best of Courtland Sutton, and I also feel like we haven't seen the best of Darren Waller, and I actually feel like we're going to see the best of Darren Waller this week. But I don't know. I like Rob's team better than you do, and I think the addition of Devin Singletary, I think, was a great pickup for him.
I have Devin Singletary.
Oh, did that? What am I looking at here? Oh, that was last week. Never mind. I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong week. My bad.
I've always loved Rob's team, but I'm just as the season's going on, Aaron Jones hasn't been consistent. Waller, it makes me nervous. Actually, I'm really nervous about the whole Raiders team as well. Is this a Josh McDaniels is just a bad head coach team? Like
It was
I
Christian Kirk I was excited about for Rob
okay,
because I hated
yeah,
his flex. So
Christian Kirk could be that guy if he can be consistent. I'm not after 3 games crowning him with that yet. Um, it, you know, if he is great, I have Trevor Lawrence. That's good news for me.
that's
But
true. I'm full on Jacksonville getting better as the season goes along, and we've already seen great from Jacksonville.
yes,
So I have to notice. Thank you for putting me in the playoffs. I don't know that I agree, but so even though you're taking the L on Phil, you're not putting him in the playoffs yet.
I'm not putting him in the playoffs yet.
All right, I'm just going to
I
keep
think
pointing that out so that way every week when he does make the playoffs, I can give you
and that's
shit
fine.
about
I'll
it.
take
So,
the L. I just
you're
honestly, I
taking a
just
lot of
don't see
L's
it.
right now.
I'm
but
not taking.
but
Well,
to be fair, we have 2 wins
biased.
between us in the podcast. So, all right, taking a look at week 4, guys. Last week I went 6-1, Dan. Kenny was my only bad pick. 15-6 on the season.
I had a terrible week last week. I went 2-5, so
Okay.
I am at 11-10 on the year.
All right. This week, instead of giving them down the line, I rank them in order of importance. We have Taylor versus Brian. There's not a lot that needs to be said here. There's the running joke of will we see the biggest loss? Taylor bought Kenny's players at the right time because Taylor got to use Jamar Chase and gets to use Kenny's players, which is just chef's kiss. I'm going to keep my running joke going. I have B's running backs at 9 points, but not 10 points.
I'll take the under.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Taylor takes the win. Although I would absolutely think it would be hysterical if somehow Brian managed to get that win over Taylor.
Well, I was going to say, at this point, if Brian beats any of the 6 playoff teams, or I guess any of the 9 playoff teams, shout out to the 5 I don't have in the playoffs. If Brian beats any of those teams, the bragging rights that Brian has at that point are just fantastic. And I think that makes his season for him because Brian knew what he was doing with this season last season. He bought the championship. And you can't convince me that Taylor, Terry, Motts, even myself to get into the second ring wouldn't make that same sacrifice. So he got the 3rd ship and he's the only active person with it. So I actually have you and JR as the next matchup because, again, I just don't think it's very consequential here. Or no, I'm sorry. I read Darren as Dan. JR and Darren as an inconsequential matchup. We have Darren who is stamping his feet right now in protest of the bullshit that went on last week. If he sets a lineup, it's a W. Tua on Thursday night absolutely killed JR's lineup. Darren's starters actually have nice matchups. He just needs to get them into his lineup. And we need Russell Wilson to play better. And I think the whole league needs Russell Wilson to play better. But I'm going to pick Darren on the assumption that he sets a goddamn lineup.
Yeah, I have Darren winning as well. Russell Wilson I would think is too good of a player to play this poorly all year. I'm really actually depending on him because I have him in our 32 team league we're in.
Yes.
I need more out of Russell Wilson. But that Denver situation seems to start getting kind of sketchy over there. Seems like some stuff's hitting the fan already. But hopefully Darren sets his lineup and he gets the win.
Yep.
Get that first win of the year. Celebrate like he's winning the Super Bowl.
I love it. I have Kenny versus Greg next. I'll let you talk about that matchup first.
I think Kenny wins that one. Gets himself up to 4-0. Yeah, like you said, Kenny's team is looking good. I think it's gonna be a closer game. I think Greg has a chance. I think he has a player in his lineup who's out that's still in there, so the scoring will get a little closer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I think that player was just announced out yesterday.
Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about Greg missing that.
No, me neither.
The issue is he'll be able to slide Debo up to wide receiver, and then I guess CEH in the flex, maybe Russell Gage if you're thinking that the wide receivers down in Tampa Bay are not quite ready yet, but I just don't know that he has the player to put into that flex. I also have Kenny winning, but I will say I feel like Kenny's trade put him into a tough spot because he got Chase but can't use him this week, but then loses the ability to use Cam Akers, though Cam Akers' game wasn't all that great. But more importantly, loses the ability to use Najee and CeeDee Lamb. So rough spot there. I think Greg's team is a team that I like his roster, and I think he's actually probably going to have the best chance to win the first pick out of those bottom 4 teams. So I have Greg playing as the team who's going to win the first pick, and I think he shows a little bit of that this week, keeps the game close. I have Kenny winning by 7 points. Then I have you and Horvath. You bought Horvath's players at the best possible time. I don't know if that was strategic on your part, but to be able to not even be able to use them against you, I think you go to 2-0. Wide receiver, what's funny is we loved his wide receivers to start the year. Keenan Allen now down again. He loses Mike Evans to you. Wide receivers are now the problem. I think Lamar and his running backs actually have good matchups. I feel like Lamar and his running backs could keep this game close, but I have you winning.
I hope I win. I should be able to win. The one thing that makes me nervous is if Brady comes out and lays another egg and Lamar does Lamar things, the game could go either way. Because then if Brady lays an egg, then I'm also hurting myself at receiver.
Yeah, the one thing that's interesting about Lamar is this is not a good matchup for him going up against Buffalo, but it's Lamar, so we kind of expect him to put out some heroics, especially after what he did last week with the 41. I guess it's been 2 weeks in a row now, 40-point games. So that's enough to keep him in with you. I just feel like Brady's got to get it together, and it should be a high-scoring primetime game against Kansas City. I think this is the week we finally see Tom Brady. Next matchup is me versus your boy. I think Phil has far too many good matchups. Jalen Hurts taking on Jacksonville, Nick Chubb against Atlanta, along with Amari Cooper against Atlanta, and then Diggs against Baltimore, who just bleeds points to offenses. I think all of those guys are going to eat again. I'm just hoping to crack 100 points with the absolute shit play I'm getting out of wide receivers. I think it's Phil all day moving to 4-0 in this matchup.
I have you winning this matchup. I don't think you're going to get too many down weeks in a row from Taylor and Mahomes.
And that's what my team comes down to is Taylor, Mahomes, and Kelsey.
So. And we've said that multiple weeks now, and I just don't think it's going to keep going down. If you lose this game, then I'm really at the question having you in that playoff picture going forward because you need to get some wins going.
I question you having me in the playoff picture already.
But I think you get the win this week. I think you'll start to feel a little more confident about your team. If not, hey, what do you want from Mahomes?
Mahomes would be the next one. I'd probably feed him to Taylor, though. I need that championship to go to my brother. He'll have to pay for him, though. It won't be a Justin Jefferson-esque to Terry trade. Speaking of Terry versus Mott's this week, probably the game of the week. I don't know. I gave Stevie versus Xavier the game of the week, but I think Terry versus Mott's, the Waddle dud hurt Terry bad. Rob has built quite a team there. Not a lot of depth, but he doesn't have to worry about depth in these non-bye weeks. The matchups even favor Rob. So do I. Mike Williams, depending on Terry's quarterback, makes it a little bit more interesting. It's going to keep it close. But I think however bad Darren Waller beats Tyler Conklin, I think that ends up being like the final like gap in this game. So I think Rob kind of wins this game on the back of Darren Waller having a huge week, and I'm not a big believer in Tyler Conklin.
So it's interesting. We had the same two games as our like top two games.
Yeah.
I definitely starred this as the game I'm the most nervous about but I did pick Rob as well. I think Terry could easily win this game. One thing for Terry, I don't know if Terry said it and watched the game, but Waddle was limping off the field at the end of that game on Thursday night. So that's something that with Herbert's injury, if Waddle's hurt at all, something that could slow him down for the season going forward. But I do have Rob winning this game.
Well, that's the story of Terry's team. Now, thankfully, he has Jamal Williams. So for the next 2 weeks, he has a really solid starting running back. But you have Antonio Gibson. Terry has the depth. You just don't. It's hard to predict when these guys are going to play. But then he hasn't gotten the great games out of Austin Eckler and Derrick Henry that we expected. Waddle's been great and then completely duds on him this week when he's facing another playoff team. And it's going to be hard to pick against Rob most weeks just on the back of Josh Allen, unless he's facing another elite quarterback. And Herbert is that. He just hasn't really done that yet this season is the issue, I feel like. And then we're going to end it with Stevie versus Xavier. I would have picked Stevie pretty handily. I've been pretty shitty on Xavier's team all year, and I've been wrong for the most part. But I think the loss of Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I think is a heart and soul player for Stevie's team, is going to make this game closer than I originally would have thought. I think Stevie's deep bench is going to pull the win out here, and this is why I like Stevie's team overall is the bench. He's able to survive these injuries that other people aren't. However, Kirk Cousins is going to be a big part of this game. Kirk Cousins in primetime is absolute trash. Now, do you consider London at 9:30 in the morning when he's the only player playing primetime? Because if not, then the game's a little bit closer, but I think Stevie pulls out the win here.
Yeah, I think Steve pulls out the win. I have it as a close game as well. I don't expect much out of Kirk Cousins, but I still think it'll be a close game.
Yeah. Xavier's running back should have every damn game close, but you have Christian McCaffrey already dealing with injuries. Sounds like he's going to play. Javonte Williams splitting that time 50-50 with Melvin Gordon. I think he is clearly the better player, but they're going to do what they're going to do. Great pickup with Khalil Herbert, who I think is going to have a good game. And then he's banking on these rookie wide receivers who have popped. It's just, will they continue to pop? And we get an answer to my question that I was wondering, is Chris Olave still the truth with Andy Dalton at quarterback?
So my question for Xavier's team is this, is if CMC continues to be just an average 12 to 15 point running back, then I don't think his team, I know you have him in the playoffs. I don't see him going anywhere near. I think he needs Christian McCaffrey to be the Christian McCaffrey of old.
I don't have Xavier in the playoffs. I have I have you, Xavier on the teams that have great rosters that are not in the playoffs.
You've mentioned him as being a team you like, so that's why I was kind of going with that.
I do like him. Yeah.
Yes. I think
like the top 9 teams in the league right now.
I think he needs CMC to be the old CMC in order to take that next step. And until I see CMC do that, I think Steve gets the win.
I agree. And like I said, I think Michael Pittman getting back to full strength is going to help make up for some of the Amon-Ra St. Brown. I actually have a feeling this week is a big Breece Hall week. Pittsburgh has not been what we expect Pittsburgh to be against the running back. I think we finally see Breece Hall pop this week and make the most out of Stevie's first pick.
I'm not a believer in Hall. I watched that entire Bengals-Jets game last week, and I was far more impressed watching Carter in that offense than Hall.
Interesting.
Majority of Hall's points came catching passes late in the game during junk time. I mean, and that's still football time. It still counts, but I think Carter looked better to me.
Boom. Any parting words for our friends?
It's fantasy football, guys. Love your neighbors. It's all good.
Yep. My parting words will always be my parting words, especially to Phil, because you're playing me this week. Fuck you all. It's fantasy football. I want to win. Tired of this losing shit. I need my wide receivers to get their shit together. Those are my parting words. But no, love you guys. Remember, it's all about fun. Darren, I assume you're watching. Set a goddamn lineup. Talk to you guys later.